So I am Jean-Philippe Méchin. I'm working for the CEREMA, involved in DATEX II also since years. And I will present you the two speakers for this session. Josef Kaltwasser is doctor in IT science. We saw already him this morning as a moderator, and he's a managing director and shareholders of Albrecht Consult Company. DATEX II is perhaps his second mother language. Actually, Joseph began to speak DATEX II as many of us who are at primary school. Joseph is a member of the technical management group of DATEX II, and is an activity leader of the activity 4, integrates the urban dimension of ITS. So it's a management of electronic traffic regulation. And previously, he was also a chairman of the technical group. Joseph is also involved in standardization at German and European level, and he is member of the CEN TC 278, working group 8, dealing with DATEX II. To resume, Joseph's duty could be data modeling as a basis for interoperability and cooperation in transport. The second speaker is Tobias Reiff from Germany. He was previously in position as project engineer in the automobile industry, and now is a research engineer in CITS and traffic management at Federal Highway Research Institute, the BAST. And the link with automobile industry and CITS is clearly what make the value of Tobias. He is also expert, leader of the expert group Traffic Management of the European Intelligent Transport System Platform, EUAP, which produced the reference handbook where recommended reference profile and recommended service profile are detailed. And that is the reason to have his presentation today. He is also in charge of national and international coordination of CITS deployment in Germany. He is strongly involved in the German part of European Sea Roads project, where linked between DATEX II and CITS data formats are worked out. So, Joseph, the floor is yours, and after Tobias.
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe, and let me try to share my presentation now. Okay, so I must say when I saw the title, I was quite enthusiastic immediately, and I said, okay, that's fine. Then I can describe how DATEX II works, how it is included in the data provision, how the technical details work in the light of the profiles and so on. What made the thing a bit more complicated then was that I learned that it is the management stream that we are in now, and therefore I tried my very best to try to refrain from any technical details here as much as possible, and just try to explain how all these things fit together when you try to use DATEX II practically for data provision. But I think it is not possible to do that or go down that route before we are not clear about what the context of this action is. So why do people try to share data in a particular way? Why should they consider to use DATEX II? And therefore, I started with a bit of background. Yeah? And to make that very clear, all actors in traffic nowadays want to share data for the same reason, more or less. They want to enable or to enhance a service for the mobility users. And I treat that as a generic term. So that includes traffic management, which is also a service to those people using mobility. And it is also, doesn't matter whether it's people or goods. Yeah? The reason or the service, the improvement you want to achieve is a better choice of time, route, mode of transport maybe, and from the perspective of the operator of the system, better traffic management, safer roads. Yeah? There is a lot of innovative things adding to that at the moment. Cooperative systems trying to connect vehicles and infrastructure, preparing for increased levels of automation, things like that. Sorry. So the most important factors that drive us along that route are really strong energy sources in the current development of our societies. The Green Deal needs decarbonization of transport at a high speed. We cannot wait 30 years until we have totally electric cars driven by totally renewable energy. So we have to improve the carbon footprint of traffic now. And automated driving is not only because for the sheer virtue of automated driving, it is because we must be competitive as the European region in the international competition of regions. And this is part of a wider picture of turning or changing our societies into data-driven digital economies, which includes aspects like mobility data spaces or 5G deployment, things like that. So there is a strong push at the moment to increase data sharing. But what is that data sharing? What does that actually mean? There is normally you are tempted to dive technically deep, very quickly go into discussions about standards and technologies and ways to do things. I think what we should do first is we should consider what is the basic scenario. And the basic scenario clearly is there is one stakeholder, let's call him A, and he has information available. And that information is already captured in a system that he operates in a digital way as data. And there's another stakeholder, call him B. And B would actually benefit from also having that information digitally in his system. But that's not the case at the moment. Because he wants to feed the semantics of that information into his algorithms, into what his systems are doing. And now A and B agree that it is beneficial for both if A would actually provide that information to B in a way that the two systems are coupled. So there is a communication from the machine of A to the machine of B. We're not talking about discussions at a table of humans. We're talking about machine-to-machine communication in a way that the semantics of the data exchange that way is then available for the software on the side of B. This may be totally voluntary setups, so it could be commercial deals between two parties. But it may also be that it is due to an obligation. And there is a set of obligations actually stipulating or at least pushing this type of data sharing. And these are the delegated regulations, which are governed under the ITS directive. And we come to that later on how that works. So what is happening is that A and B simply agree, yes, we couple our machines. We enable this digital exchange of machine processable data. I use the term digital exchange. That is probably a very conservative way of phrasing it. It is more like the A pushes something to B. If you want to be a more advanced, maybe you look at it the other way around. So B accesses data from A. That is still the same thing. So we talk about this digital machine processable data being transferred from the system of A to the system of B. And I tried to depict this in a graphical way. And so if you look, we start on the left side, that's A, and on the right side is B. And if we start in the upper left corner, we have an information. As an example, I used the closure of a road. Very important information. This information is already represented in the machine on the side of A. I did depict a bit a little data model maybe, but don't look too much into that. That's just an icon that shows you the information is already captured at the side of A as machine data. And now we want to get that machine data to the other side. What we have to do is what technicians call serialization. So we have to pull the information out of the system in a way that can be transferred. And at the end of the day, transferring means encoding it as a sequence of zeros and ones, because all our communication channels, whether that's radio or fiber or internet or whatever it is, they are all digital channels, which are just a pipe where you push zeros and ones in and they come out on the other side. And that is indicated by the arrow at the bottom, the data exchange or data access. I don't make that distinction. Yeah? So what happens on the side of B as well, the exact sequence of zeros and ones is received, the serialized data, my little snippet here of some XML as an example is reconstructed, and then it is transformed into machine data on the side of B. And what you should note is I've used another icon here. I did use some, it looks like a mathematical tree symbol or something like that. That's important. The machine data is maybe different. The machine is maybe different. The whole environment of the software is maybe totally different programming language or database technology, whatever. What is important is that the information is reconstructed in a way that represents the proper semantics for the application on the side of B. So if you look at the upper right corner, I indicated a road closure icon on a map, something like that. Yeah. So that is the important thing. And now what you will note, if you look at the lower right part of the slide, you see DATEX II. That's not from me. That is part of the slide template that we are using all day. So I have myself not put anything on this thing so far that is related to DATEX II, national access points, or delegated regulations. If you like the presentation, you just get your hands on it and you put them on another background. The same thing holds for CITS, it holds for infrastructure support for automated driving, it holds for traveler information services, it really holds for all types of data exchange. So it's a very basic drawing. Yeah? So the question is, where are those things? Where is DATEX? Where are the NAPs? Where are the delegated regulations in this picture? And what I did is I've tried to depict this a bit. Yeah? So I have dimmed the background a bit so you can read the writing. And then we start up here. So what you've seen is a process of turning an information, the semantics, the meaning, into a machine data, a data model. We have serialized it and we have encoded that. And this sequence, which is really happening everywhere, where you do data sharing or data exchange, this is really governed by what DATEX II called the content model. It is published either on datex2.eu in the academy, or you can buy it as Sense standards in the 16.15.7 series. And the delegated regulations, which have been published under the ITS directive, they refer to exactly that set of standards. So the delegated regulations, they at least strongly recommend you to use this DATEX II mechanism for this process. You could have done it in totally different ways, million different ways, yeah? But the delegated regulations say, oh, go and you do it that way. If I go on, then below that, we have the national access points. They are the places that actually exchange that information, or they allow the exchange of that information. Now you may wonder why I've used a dotted line. Well, very simply put, the delegated regulations actually don't really require the data, the bits, to flow via the national access point. That is optional. The only thing that is mandatory is that the metadata, the information about digital information that is available, is published via the national access point. And how the different member states have realized that concept is really diverging. Yeah? There are member states where the national access point only is the metadata repository and the actual exchange happens somewhere else. Other member states have actually implemented both this information about information, the metadata, data about data, but also the actual data flows via the national access point. Yeah? So this is really diverging. It's not standardized at the moment, at least all over Europe. There is an intention now to set up a program support action to at least harmonize it. We'll see how successful that is going to be. Now, you say exchange. Well, DATEX II also has an exchange specification. That's true. But use that specification from the perspective of the delegated regulations is totally voluntary. This DATEX II exchange, which you also find on the datex2.eu website, is not governed by the delegated regulation. It is standardized on ISO level in various ISO standards. And you can also get the specifications and the tools you need on the DATEX II website. But whether or not the national access points use that or use another data access or data exchange technology is totally open. So what does that mean? So if a delegated regulation say, I shall use DATEX II, do they provide me a data model? So they give me that data model that I have to use? No, not really. No, that's not true. This is not how it works. If you haven't done so, I really encourage you to read one of those delegated regulations, just one type. They are not so big. There's only a couple of pages. Yeah, but what they provide is a less detailed description of types of data that they want to be made available, and that is a textual description. You can choose if you download them your own language, so you get it in your own mother tongue. Yeah. They do strongly recommend to use the CEN 16.15.7 series, so that is DATEX II content for encoding, but they do not select any particular part of that series, or they do give you a concrete data profile or anything. This is not what they're doing. What does that mean? Well, as a data supplier, you still have a lot of freedom. Yeah? That was the positive way of phrasing it. You could also see it as a challenge because you still have to do a lot of decisions yourself and a lot of work. You have to decide yourself which publications to use, which elements to use out of that, and to create your own data profile. Yeah? This also means that for the perspective of the data receivers in Europe, they still have to deal with a lot of diversity. If you have different actors in different member states creating their own data profiles, and you want to create clients that absorb this information, you have to create more or less one client per feed, which is a lot of work. Yeah? So you would wonder, so does the DATEX II world, the program support action at the moment, does that help me at all? Yes, it helps you in that process as far as it can. The PSA cannot and should not mandate detailed models and claim they were mandated by the delegated regulation. That's not possible. Yeah? That's an interpretation which would not be adequate. But what the PSA can do is it can provide support to ensure that data publishers that create a data profile for their systems create one that is compliant with the delegated regulations. Yeah? So it is not providing complete predefined data profiles, but mechanisms that help the users to ensure that the profiles they create are compliant. And this mechanism is called recommended reference profiles. And I show a bit how this works. Yeah. If you look at it, we have the DATEX II data profiling tool. This is the tool that you use if you want to create a DATEX II data profile for publishing data. And that is available on the DATEX II website nowadays as an online tool. So if you go to webtool.datex2.eu/wizard, then you will get the user interface that I'm showing at the bottom of the slide. And that is actually a tool that guides you through the process of creating a DATEX II data profile. As you can see from left to right, it is stepwise, so it has 7 steps. Yeah. There was a session before, I think at 2 o'clock, which exposed the DATEX II technology details to a technical audience, and there the guys showed you all the details about this tool. I will not do it, but I just will summarize in principle what these 7 steps are, because that's important to understand how we nowadays organize the support for the users. Yeah? No, so if you start using the tool, the first step is to select the base model. Now, this can be your own model. There are people who create totally different fancy things in other domains using the DATEX II methodology and the DATEX II tools. But if you work in the light of the delegated regulations, then what you will do is probably just select the proper sense standard. So the package that is provided and described in one of the sense standards as a starting point. Yeah? And then you can go to the second step. And the second step is called load a selection file. Now that really sounds very technical. Actually, what it does is it allows you to work iteratively. So this selection file is something that you can yourself save. And then if you're working on a data profile, this is not always done in an hour or so. So maybe you want to continue working on the data profile on the other day, then you just save the selection file, and the other day you start again, load it in step 2, and you continue your work. Yeah? So that's very important for that. And then we come to the third step, and that is now the step where you actually select one of those recommended profile tools. And I already introduced one, which is the recommended reference profile system, and I'll show that later on. But in the second presentation, Tobias Reiff will show you a framework that has provided something further than that, which is called recommended service profiles. Yeah? These profiles govern the content, the details of the content of your publication. So which type of objects do you provide? Do you provide information about accidents or closures or roadworks? Which attributes do you provide? Do you provide queues with a length, or do you provide travel times with concrete impact assessment or whatever? Yeah, so the DATEX II base models are very large models, and the profiling means you pick those elements from these very large models that your system can really provide. Yeah. There is another step, a separated step number 4, to select the location referencing elements of that. You wonder why this distinction is made, but it is simply because location referencing in itself is a huge and important step in creating a data profile. Yeah? DATEX II itself has not invented or does not invent any location referencing mechanisms. It reuses mechanisms that have been developed in other standards. And it is quite a huge model, really. And this is a separate process. And since it is more or less orthogonal to the choices made in step 3, because the location referencing mechanisms, the standards to use, etc., they are not governed by the delegated regulations. We have separated those steps. So at the end of the day, step 3 and step 4 are the main choices to be made. Once you've done that, you enter step number 5, and that is where you create your own profile. Now you have to sit down and you have to think about what data do I exactly want to provide. Yeah? And that is a selection. It is a graphical user interface with a tree structure, and you make clicks here and there to choose those things that you can provide. And you take clicks away where you say, oh, that element I don't have. Yeah? And then you've done the work. That is number 5 is where you can spend hours, yeah, depending on the depth of information and all the considerations to be done. The rest is very simple. You go to step number 6, which is options, where you can choose technical aspects like how do I want to implement the interface? Do I want to use XML, or do I want to use JSON, or do I want to use ASN.1? Things like that. And at the end of the day, you push finish, and then you download the data specification. That is what this tool produces. It is the things that you need to build an interface. Yeah, and that includes all those stages that I've shown in the slides. So it includes the selection of the model. It includes the aspect of the data serialization and the validation of any concrete message against the schema that has been produced, and so on. Yeah? So this is what you want to take and give to your software developers for them to create a specification. And in particular, as a supplier, this is what you want to give to the clients, because if they use that to implement their software, the interoperability of both interfaces is automatically guaranteed. That is the basic principle. Now, how do these recommended reference profiles that ensure compliance with the delegated regulations, how do they work? Well, in essence, what they do is, as I said, the important step is step number 5, the profiling. Yeah? In essence, what they do is they warn you when in the process of defining your own profile in step number 5, you run the risk that your profile is no longer in sync with the delegated regulation that you've chosen. Yeah, I said it warns you. It does not force you to do anything. It just gives you a warning when, and I'll show that a bit using an example. But it is just a warning, because it can still be your intention to do what you want to do. This is not, since the delegated regulations do not stipulate details of a model, you can never say that has to be there and that doesn't have to be there. Yeah? You can only say, hang on, this is what you are probably removing from your profile an element which seems to be very much governed by the delegated regulation. Yeah? And you can do so. It can be totally correct for you and your system to exclude these things, but you have to acknowledge the warning. So you will not be jeopardizing your compliance with the delegated regulation by accident. Yeah? And I give an example. I said I don't want to get too much into these technical processes, but just to give you a feeling, I give one example. And let us assume we want to build or specify an interface for a system that publishes information about unprotected accident areas. Unprotected accident area is a concept that is governed by Delegated Regulation 886/2013 about safety-related traffic information. So how does that look like? In step number 3, as I said, you can select those recommended reference profiles. And if you look at this, then you see there are various delegated regulations that you can choose from. And the one that I've used for the example is the SRTI one. And I've clicked it, and then you see the concepts which are governed by this delegated regulation: animal, people, obstacles, short-term roadworks, etc., etc. And one of them is unprotected accident area, and I've clicked this. So now I want to create a data profile that I hope is compliant with the delegated regulation 886 regarding unprotected accident areas. Well, what happens now is, well, I have to choose something of location. I skip that, and now I'm in number 5. Now I'm doing my profile. Now I'm defining the interface for my system. And what happens now is, if you look at it, it's hard to see probably depending on your screen, but you see that some elements now have a color. They are blue. All the others are black. If I had not selected any profile, all would be black. But now accident is blue. And what happens if I attempt to remove the accident from my profile, which I've done, so I've deselected it, I've clicked on the yellow tick and it removed it, then I get a warning. And this is how the warning looks like. The warning says uncheck reference profile node ? Do you want to uncheck node accident? The node is checked from reference profile unprotected accident area. So this is my warning that this data concept accident is governed by the delegated regulation on safety-related traffic information. Yeah? It could still be possible that is a totally appropriate choice for my system, and then I click on yes. But it could be that I've done it by accident, and I reconsider this now, and then I would click on no, and it would revert back to the accident being selected. So this is the basic principle of the reference profiles, recommended reference profiles, which are still not providing you with a full-fledged profile. They are just helping you in your profiling process to avoid creating problems with the delegated regulations. Now you may be disappointed. Say, oh, that is not the type of support that I wanted. I don't want to spend so much energy on my interfaces. I am just deploying ordinary ITS services. I don't want to create my own data profile. There must be something better to support me, isn't it? Yes, indeed, it is. And there is actually a whole action, a whole activity that is trying to produce this type of support. But this is not located inside the DATEX II PSA. This is located inside the European ITS platform, EU EIP, which has developed a whole reference handbook, or is developing at the moment, a whole reference handbook for ITS service deployment. And this handbook not only refers to interfaces, it actually helps you to set up a deployment in all aspects, but it also provides you with a complete specification of a service-related data profile using the same tooling system. And those things are called the recommended service profiles. And I'm really happy that we have Tobias Reiff from the BAST here, who is sharing this activity, and he will shed light on how this works in his presentation. So I hand over to Tobias, and I will stop my sharing here at the moment.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. I will just try to share my screen as well. Okay, I hope you can see my screen and hear me properly.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would, as Joseph mentioned, I would like to give you a little bit more insights about our activity, the EU EIP activity, and we worked in close cooperation with the DATEX II program support action to establish the already mentioned recommended service profiles. And yeah, before I go in detail, I would like to give you a little bit more insights who we are, what we do, and what do we achieve. So the European ITS platform is the European platform for intelligent transport systems, and we are road authorities and road operators from all over Europe cooperating on ITS corridors, and we work on harmonization of and deployment of ITS on the TEN-T road network. Our goal is to increase the efficiency of the existing European road network by implementing ITS, and we foster the interoperability and uniform technical standards. Yeah, we would like to support the implementation of ITS, and we also support to implement the ITS directive and the delegated regulations. So within EUAP, we have several achievements, but today I would like to give you a little bit more detail on the reference handbook for harmonized core ITS service deployment, which is the first point on the right side on my screen. So what is new? So within our EUAP activity, we worked intensively on developing the reference handbook for harmonized ITS core service deployment. And yeah, so this, as Joseph already mentioned, so this reference handbook support and give guidance to road operators and road authorities to implement ITS. And in this way, it supports to use the existing road network in a more efficient way. So within EIP, we had 6 essential steps where we have worked on. So our work was based on the deployment guidelines, which have already been released in 2012. We intensively checked, of course, the delegated regulations within the ITS directive. Yeah, as mentioned, we worked in close cooperation with the DATEX II program support action to establish the recommended service profiles, which I will explain later a little bit more in detail. We checked which ITS service can be supported by a CITS service. And we also considered that different target groups of the reference handbook would like to have the information more easily and more easily to access this information. And we were able to collect more than 100 deployment references of real ITS deployments on the 10T network. Today I will focus on the first 3 steps. And as mentioned, by developing the reference handbook, we didn't start from scratch. We took as basis the deployment guidelines, which has been developed out of the Easy Way program. And in 2015, they have been updated within the frame of EIP and EIP Plus. And now within the EU EIP activity, we are establishing the reference handbook. So we have these 19 separate deployment guidelines, which are still available on our EU EIP website. But to reduce the repetitions and to have one handbook which collects all ITS knowledge, we decided to have it in one reference handbook. And you see the common conceptual setup on the right side of my slide now. So we have a common part which is valid for all ITS services. And then we have 3 blocks which consist of traffic and travel time information, traffic and travel information services, traffic management services, and freight and logistics services. And we have a common annex, which includes the already mentioned deployment references and the checklist for ITS deployments. So our 14 ITS services are in these 3 blocks described with separate chapters. So this is our basis for the work on the reference handbook. The second major development is the compliance to the delegated regulations. Under the ITS directive, we checked which data needs to be made accessible with the delegated regulations for safe and secure truck parking, safety-related traffic information, real-time traffic information, and multimodal traffic, travel information. And we formulated these requirements of ITS services accordingly. So this helps the user of the reference see easily if I have the ITS service XYZ installed and following data elements are available, then I have to provide following data elements, for example, on a national access point. So this reference handbook helps the user to be compliant also to the delegated regulations. So how have we conducted this step? So within the reference handbook, we distinguish between 3 interfaces, which are shown on my slide here. The interfaces, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but are marked in blue. So this IF1 is interface 1, which is on the top of the gray middle part here. You have the interface 2 and interface 3. The part in the middle, which is limited by the gray dotted line, is the ITS service itself, which, for example, can be conducted by a traffic management center. And the interfaces show the data exchange with the outer world. So within the interface 1, the road operator or the traffic management center has the opportunity to share the data with other road operators or the private sectors or even other entities, and also, of course, to the national access point. And this is the interface 1 is the relevant interface which reference to the DATEX II profiles, which has been established together with the DATEX II program support action. Yeah, the second interface which is considered within the reference handbook is the interface 2, which gives the road operator the possibility to communicate in a direct way to the road users, for example, with the help of CITS. And in this reference handbook, we reference then to the specifications which has been established within the C-Roads project. And the interface 3 describes the possibility as a road operator to enrich their data with the help of the direct communication, where data direct flows from the road user to the road operator. So enrich the data in the mean of traditional data collecting systems like induction loops and so on, which are already assembled. So these are the three interfaces which we are distinguishing in this reference handbook. Yeah, and on this slide, I come to the third step, which we have worked on within EIP, and we conducted this step together with the DATEX II program support actions. And yeah, we developed for every ITS service, so 14 ITS services are described in this separate chapters in the reference handbook, and we developed together with the DATEX II PSA for every ITS service a recommended service profiles. So this was possible because we had on the one hand the experts for the ITS service on the EOIP side, and on the other side we had the experts of the DATEX profiling, and together we were able to establish for every ITS service this recommended service profiles. These recommended service profiles are available on this DATEX II web page and on the web integrated already in this web tool, which has been shown earlier already. And how have we now integrated these recommended service profiles into our reference handbook? So we have a linkage via interface requirements and information provision standards, and I don't think that you can read the text on the right side, but I want to give you this just as a feeling. So we have for every ITS service, we have these interface requirements and information provision standards. And for example, for this interface 1, which I have tried to explain earlier, which is the interface from the traffic management center, for example, to the national access point or also to other entities. We have formulated then, for example, for the ITS service variable speed limit. Variable speed limit service must provide at interface 1 information on the current speed limit, including following elements, and then we are listing here the elements which needs to be provided, for example, the active speed limit, the location of the speed limit, and so on. And then referring to this interface, we have an information provision standard where it's written, if a variable speed limit service is implemented, it must be profiled based on this special standard, and we recommend to use the DATEX II recommended service profiles for variable speed limits, which is then available in this web tool, which has been shown earlier. Yeah, here on the right side, you see the third step of this DATEX II web tool, where you see the 14 ITS services, so the 14 recommended services, service profiles for every ITS service. This is what I wanted to say. And you can choose them, and there's the profile which has been developed in this cooperation available. Yeah, this is already the summary from my short introduction to the EIP world and the cooperation with DATEX II. So what have we done? So we established a reference handbook for harmonized ITS core service deployment in Europe. We ensured that our requirements are compiling to the delegated regulations under the ITS directive, and together with the DATEX II program support action, we were able to establish these 14 reference recommended service profiles, which are freely available on the DATEX II web tool. And yeah, what is the current status of the reference handbook? As Josef already mentioned, so this reference handbook is still under development, but it has been reviewed by every 14 member states of the EUAP, and we have received a lot of comments to this reference handbook, which shows us that this is an important tool and an important outcome of our activities, and we are now in the phase to find solutions for every comment we have received, and we want to have an agreed version of the reference handbook beginning of next year. And then we will also establish a web-based version of the reference handbook, so that the information which is needed from the road operator, road authorities, or decision makers are accessible more easily via the web page, and you don't have to scroll through the whole PDF, which has more than 200 pages. And of course, we will disseminate this information about the reference handbook like in the webinar today.